My name is Roy Aranda, and I'm a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist who specializes in forensic psychology and neuropsychology. And I have offices in Long Island, and I'm a proud member of New York State Psychological Association.
Dr. Aranda, you are a licensed psychologist. Can you tell me a little bit about your training and how you became interested in psychology?
How much time do you have? My training. Well, my interest in psychology and what I ended up doing in psychology are basically miles and years apart, which is probably true for most professions. You know, people, they start out with one thing that they're interested in and it evolves over the passage of time. When I was in high school, I did some volunteer work for Lifeline Center for Child Development, and I was working with severely challenged children. And I remember being at a meeting, and there was the school psychologist was there, and there was a psychiatrist and a social worker, and I was so excited. I said to myself, this is what I want to do. I want to become a school psychologist. And sure enough, that was the direction that I moved in years later. I studied school psychology for about a year at Brooklyn College, and then I applied to New Jersey, the Rutgers University, and somewhere after about a year, you know, I did train in school psychology. I decided what I really wanted to do was clinical psychology, and I was at the Graduate School of Applied Psychology, and I completed a degree, Doctor of Psychology in Clinical Psychology, and with the exposure to community mental health populations, criminal populations, and outpatient populations in private settings, I shaped the direction that I went in. For me, what was also very significant is that I sustained an injury back in 1990. And as a result of that injury, I became much more in tune with working with behavioral health and pain patients. And that brought me to a private practice where I work with many people that are injured and have suffered trauma. The exposure to forensic psychology came from working at Kingsborough Psychiatric Center and Kirby Forensic Psychiatric Center, where I started working with a wide variety of patients who had some interaction with the legal system. So that's pretty much what started the forensic part.
Dr. Aranda, you indicated that you specialize in clinical and forensic psychology. What is forensic psychology? And how did you go about becoming a specialist in forensic psychology?
Well, forensic psychology is a specialty within, I would put it within the field of probably clinical and neuropsychology mix, since essentially the best trained or the most competent forensic psychologists really have exposure to a lot of clinical as well as neuropsychology. Forensic psychology very broadly is the interface of psychology and the law. Anything that psychologists do working with patients or clients where there is potential for contact with the legal system, I would say is a very broad definition of forensic psychology. That's pretty loose. Within that, you have a broad, wide spectrum. I guess purest form of forensic psychology would be somebody who's not providing treatment and is fulfilling a purpose towards some sort of legal end. You're hired by court or by an attorney with a particular question in mind, and you're not treating the person. You're providing a competent, thorough, comprehensive examination to answer whatever the referral question might be. There are tremendous clinical components as well, so that you may be working with patients who have suffered occupational injuries within the workers' compensation system or no fault. They have attorneys, but you're actually treating them. You're providing a service for them, and somewhere down the road there may be some reason for you to testify or to provide a report to a court or to an attorney. So it's a broad spectrum, basically.
What kind of cases do you work with?
Well, I personally work with a lot of patients who have been injured. I have patients who come to me and they have suffered car accidents, so it's no fault, workers' compensation. Um, I also work with immigration cases, patients who may be facing what's called removal, hardship cases, requesting asylum because of terrible things that happened in their country of origin. I know that I didn't mention this before, but forensic psychologists they can work in civil and criminal settings. So criminal, it can be very broad. It can be working with drunk drivers and people who commit homicides or an industry that has become very salient in New York recently, the sexual predator, violent predator laws, which pertain to civil commitment of individuals who've committed sex crimes. These are some other aspects. Family law, child abuse, neglect, domestic violence types of cases. I handle a few of those. I also work extensively criminal cases, and I do a lot of work with sex offenders, evaluating sex offenders as well.
Now, is there something very special to the training as a psychologist that makes you unique and qualified to be able to do that? Or other people with 2-year degrees can also do similar work that you're doing?
Well, there are many people that are involved in forensics. There are social workers that do forensic social work. There's forensic psychiatrists. There's other professions. As long as there's an interface with the law, they're providing a forensic service. I think that what psychology provides that's very unique is we have this tremendous skill set that comes from years and years of advanced doctoral training and practicum. Many go forward with postdoctoral training and seminars and workshops and lectures and reading volumes and volumes and volumes of textbooks and journal articles, so that we bring an ability to do evaluations and assessments that I don't believe any other profession has that particular skill set. We also have an ability to communicate after writing so much in volumes and volumes, dissertations that are 200 pages long, and reports. Some of these forensic reports could be 25 pages long easily. You have to learn how to organize your thinking. You develop excellent writing skills. Also, we have an ability to interact with other professionals. It's often a team approach where you consider the needs of a particular person within a system that encompasses other health professionals as well. So we have a skill set that I think is very unique and very competent to help the legal industry.
Are there any cases that are particularly interesting or were challenging to you?
I sort of fell into my first case back in 1990. This was the Happy Land trial, the case of a Cuban Marialita, Cuban refugee who had burned down the social club, the Happy Land Club, killing 87 people. And because I speak Spanish fluently and I'm familiar with many Hispanic cultures, I was contacted by the attorney, the defense attorney, and asked if I had wanted to perform an examination of this individual, and I accepted, and I had no idea that it was going to be an experience of a lifetime. That actually took me to Cuba back in 1990, where I could meet with family members and get some sort of historical information about this individual. So that was really an eye-opener for me. And then after that, I did have another very salient case of the blind Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman and several accomplices who were arrested and charged with plotting to bomb numerous landmarks in New York City. And one of the co-defendants is Puerto Rican, Spanish dominant, and again I was contacted by the attorney of the case to see if I wanted to perform that evaluation, and that led to another amazing trip to Puerto Rico to meet with family members and also unravel some of the history involved in that. Most recently, I was contacted with the Gilgo Beach murder and interviewed several times on television. I didn't have a role in, I mean, the individual or individuals were not apprehended, so I certainly didn't have a role in working with the criminal. But I was asked about my thoughts and views on that particular case, and that was also very interesting.
What aspect of your work do you enjoy the most?
I would say that it's interesting because the part that I enjoy most is also the part that probably creates the most anxiety. Actually going to court and testifying. The work that I do that interfaces with attorneys, and I have to travel many different courts. I've testified as far north as near Canada, all over the place, and it's amazing, the exposure with the different types of attorneys, different courts, different judges, different prosecutors, the traveling and having to make the arrangements to go there and preparing for the cases. When you handle, as a forensic psychologist, a legal case with the anticipation of having to testify, you have to be so prepared and so ready that it's an experience that leads you to do a tremendous amount of reading, tremendous amount of research, and review. So it's very educational, but it's also anxiety provoking. Every time that you take the stand, at least when I take the stand, there's always some initial anxiety until I relax when I realize that I'm the expert.
Okay. And how do you stay current in your field with all of the testifying and all the cases for which you're involved?
Non-stop reading. I'm on the computer a lot, internet, tremendous amount of involvement in professional organizations. I belong to psychological organizations. Also, I have a law degree as well, and specialized training in neuropsychology. So I belong to organizations within the field of law and neuropsychology, as well as psychology in general. So I interact with people, I would say, on a daily basis through the internet, emails, telephone, attending workshops, going to meetings, conferences, reading nonstop every day. You have to read. There's a proliferation of research and data that's put out there every single day, and you have to be able to filter out that which is competent from stuff that's out there that's soft.
Okay. What particular skill sets do you think psychologists possess that makes them the experts in mental health field, the go-to people?
Many. For one, we are experts in assessment. We're very good at being given a problem and thinking about the problem and performing a thorough, competent assessment. We're very good at communicating because we have excellent writing skills from years and years and years of reading and writing and performing research. We communicate well with others. We're thrown into settings where we have to talk to other professionals, where we have to talk to patients, members of the community, leaders, attorneys, judges, politicians, so we develop an ability to interact with others, to assess a situation, weigh options, not be impulsive and jump too quickly to something. We interact well with other disciplines, and I think that we are at the forefront for being able to assist in terms of efforts towards prevention at the very beginning, prevention, and at the very end doing tertiary type of work where you're actually dealing with the problem. You already have a problem in hand. How do you deal with it?
You mentioned training. What is unique to a training of a psychologist? Graduate school, internship, postdoc fellowships. Can you comment on that?
Excellent academic skills. There is a training set of coursework that covers many different aspects of human development, human behavior, different kinds of interventions, different kinds of evaluation, assessments, research, statistics that a lot of people outside of psychology, and even some psychologists, are afraid of, statistics. But the academics, we do a tremendous amount of reading in different kinds of areas involving human development and psychology in general. Another thing that that we do is the assessment itself, the testing. We're experts in psychological testing, many different kinds of models. We're exposed to different models of pathology. We're also very keenly aware of strengths. It's terrible when you have somebody, a patient, a hypothetical patient, and that person, there's some discussion about the person's problems, and everything seems to focus on pathology. Where many professions, many individuals tend to over-pathologize. They look for that which is bad. They look for the weaknesses. And they lose sight of the strengths, the good qualities, the positive aspects. We look to see how this individual fits into society in general. So I think that that's also a skill set that we have that makes us very unique.
What are some of the misconceptions you think society has about psychologists?
I think that there are many, and it's unfortunate probably because of the proliferation of the media. There's so much stuff that's out there. There's many shows about, Dr. So-and-so, and this one and that one, and Dr. this one, and medical doctors that offer psychological advice, and they're not psychologists, and people doing career training and motivational trainers and speakers, and you even have these so-called, in quotes, mental health experts appearing on shows like Jerry Springer. So who knows? You have this tremendous confusion of what mental health is in general. How are psychologists different from psychiatrists? Aren't they the same thing? What's a social worker? And even within the industry of psychology, if you've identified someone as a psychologist, there's misconceptions about the type of training, what they do, where they practice, skill sets that they bring, what they charge. You go on the internet, there's YouTubes all over the place. Some are jokes, some are criticisms. It's very hard for the public really to tell what is a competent psychologist as opposed to the proliferation of many other, in quotes, soft degrees, pseudo degrees, and aunts and uncles who offer advice.
So how would somebody from the general public be able to identify somebody as a psychologist? What would that person's credentials look like?
They have to go to more competent sources. I think that people would need to really look to the psychology organizations of the county that they're a member, that they live in, the state, the American Psychological Association. If they have concerns or questions about somebody's credential, New York State Education Department, they provide a listing of the names of the individuals and whether or not they are licensed. The psychologist has a doctoral degree and is licensed, has to have taken a very difficult test in New York and whatever other states they're licensed in. Pass that test, and they have to meet other requirements. They have to have had internship, postdoctoral training, supervision, but licensure. That's the overriding qualification of psychologists.
What do psychologists do that make our world a better place?
We are able to assess an individual as part of a system. So we not only look at individuals, but we look at systems. So we look at how something, as I said before, what's good about it, what's bad about it, what's a fit. I think that we're dealing right now in a day and age where prevention is very, very important. Why wait for there to be a problem if you can intervene earlier? So I think that we're able to provide a service of helping people be happier, better adjusted, learn what skills they need to move in a particular direction that they may want to move into, assess whether or not their own goals are realistic or not, and help them to make choices that are reasonable. We also bring a unique, I'd say fairly modern ability, namely a risk assessment. And risk assessment can be very broad. You're assessing different types of capacities, different types of competencies in different kinds of settings. And this is something that's not, it's a combination of static factors and dynamic factors that change over time. But we seem to have the foremost ability to do that type of work and to share those kinds of pieces of knowledge and information to other professionals and to politicians and to individuals in society in general.
How do you think psychologists shape or can influence public policy?
The marriage between law and psychology historically has been full of problems. It's been an uncomfortable fit. It's been getting better over the past few decades, but law is guided very much by black and white. It's yes or no. Doctor, did this happen? Yes or no. I don't want anything else. Yes or no. So you have a lot of black and white. You don't have too much room for gray areas, and a lot of public policy is similar. You have this knee-jerk, in some instances, black and white reactions. People in the public will react to something horrible that happened. They'll scream out, and you have the politicians want to immediately pass laws without actually thinking them through and weighing them. The law, which is what we all have to follow, then will come up with judgments that are based on clinical judgments, gut reactions, gut feelings, intuition. This is what we think it should be. So because of this, we're passing this kind of law. Psychologists, with their ability to do assessments, their understanding of human development, cycles, strengths, cognitive functioning, neuropsychological aspects, are able to inform the legal system as to what's more accurate. This is empirical research shows this. An example in real life would be, for instance, pertaining to children, that why on earth would you want to execute a child who committed a homicide? Is a child really competent to understand the way an adult is, or someone mentally challenged individual with an IQ that's subnormal? Is that person really in the same league with other individuals? And I think that this is where we can help carve and shape the public policy. And we've been successful in some instances, but unfortunately the law lags behind scientific knowledge, I'd say, by at least a decade, if not 2 decades.
Okay. What do you foresee as some of the problems for the future of psychology? And are there any ways to resolve these problems?
There are many problems, and they're not just endemic to psychology, but I think that essentially, we're faced with economical crunches all over the place. So the people are scrambling just to figure out how to survive. Budgets are being reduced. Programs are being completely eliminated. We're basically being asked to do more with a lot less, and this is certainly something that applies to psychology. So where you have different poles, you have a model that is pulling towards cutting costs, giving the least amount of service that's possible for the lowest price that's possible, and you have psychologists saying, but wait a second, we can't really do this. So somewhere there has to be a marriage. There has to be a happy medium where we as psychologists are developing better ability to provide briefer interventions that are competent and that we can demonstrate through evidence-based research, evidence practice, that this type of model that we're suggesting over X number of sessions seems to produce viable results and is consistent with the monetary budgets that you're allocating. But somewhere down the road, we've got to like speak out and say what you're asking can't be delivered, and what you're asking for is going to result in bad practice, bad psychology. So I'm not saying that we're there yet, but I do have a fear that we're moving in that direction. And I think that what psychology also has to do is lose its orientation, some of the original orientation that we were trained with, that doesn't rest on scientific research. Why must a session be 45 minutes long? We have codes that psychologists use that say 45 minutes. There's other codes that say 25 minutes. So, doctor, can you actually do in 20 minutes what somebody else does in 45 minutes? Do you have research that demonstrates this? Arguably, there's research that's out there. So you need to look at case-by-case basis what you're going to offer and start losing some of these old archaic forms of thinking and replace them with where is the evidence. We also need to be very focused and very aware of the diversity of the people that live in the United States. We're not just catering to a mainstream population that has insurance or has money and has the ability to pay for these services. You're dealing with culturally disadvantaged individuals who are financially disadvantaged, many different cultures, many different languages, many different religions, many different medical problems. Some are chronic. Some have chronic mental illnesses. We have cultural competencies to consider, aging. We're a tremendously wide variety of people, and we need to outreach, and we need to provide services for all of these people, and they have to ultimately, everything is going to boil down to, can you prove that what you do works? And I think that this is our future, and as researchers, we need to get back into research and applied research, and we need to pretty much prove it.
If somebody from the general public wishes to contact a psychologist, how would they find one?
I would say that probably the best way to do this is to go through the psychological associations. For instance, Nassau County has Nassau County Psychological Association. Suffolk has Suffolk County Psychological Association. The parent organizations, New York State Psychological Association. There are listservs. There's individuals that they would be able to access and find out, or they make a phone call and they're given certain names or listings of individuals with the types of problem areas that maybe they're looking for, in a geographic area that they're looking for. At least they'll know that they're getting somebody who in fact is a licensed psychologist.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Aranda.